Breaking news tonight out of El Dorado, the city commission there approving an ordinance intended to help clear the way for future projects that includes data centers. So this comes as the community has sought more transparency over the possibility of a data center coming to the community. The ordinance updates the city's zoning code, so data centers or battery storage facilities would have to be clearly defined and subject to modern standards. However, it does not approve any specific project. Here's what El Dorado's city manager has to say about the negative feedback the city's received about the ordinance.
I would say that what we need to do as a city is we need to step back and kind of reassess where we're at. Definitely heard comments about transparency and community trust, and we need to figure out how we can strengthen those things. The difficult thing is with economic development, the process is not transparent. It is opaque, and it's opaque for a reason. People don't understand that, and so I think the first thing is we've got to come out and we've got to educate and inform folks as to why that process is the way it is. But then where there's opportunities for increasing transparency, we need to work on that as well.
The city making clear in a statement regarding the ordinance that its approval does not obligate it to approve a future data center. Rather, it provides clear guidelines when assessing future offers.